I love it. It's good. I'll
Yeah, so I
probably,
did my homework.
well, dude, I'm witty.
I just was playing because I love the game. Like, and it's scary to me.
It's really easy for the game to become a job.
Low six in his hands, whistle in his mouth.
Man, kids out there playing the game, staying out of trouble, competing. I love it.
I'm assuming that the vast majority of you who hear this episode would be someone that's heard an episode or two before. And we've been on a little bit of a hiatus, and there are reasons. But we are officially back in the game, and the Quick Six is, I know we've said this before, and we didn't do a great job on following through, but we are back. We are going to be here on a regular basis. I have accepted my fate as not being able to do this in person, and Trenton couldn't be more excited about that. But the Quick
I'm so
Six
excited.
is officially back on.
We're back. We are back.
In the last couple years, so the last conversation we had in this forum, believe it or not, guys, we do talk other than right here. The last conversation we had in this forum, you were a couple months into your time at Vanderbilt.
Right.
Why don't you kind of quick synopsis of where you are, because the office you're in now does not look like the last one we saw you at.
Yeah. So Vanderbilt the last 2 years, I thought I knew football. I didn't know football. I still don't know football. I think any of us do. We're all trying to figure it out. But man, like I learned more ball the last 2 years than I could ever imagine. That first year at Vanderbilt for me was like a huge eye opener because it was more of like what language is being spoken on a daily basis, and I'm not understanding it. And so, but it was cool for me to be able to sit back for the first time in my career as not a coordinator and like watch somebody else do it and the way that they do it. I haven't had that chance yet, and so and for me to be like an air raid guy and to watch somebody from a pro style do it, whether it's like game planning, whatever, and see them how they operate, and then obviously our head coach and how he operated, he's Coach Lee's unbelievable. It was a huge opportunity, and so from recruiting to the cutups that every analyst in GUC loves to do, to the breakdown, to experiencing, the Saturdays. It was a really cool experience. But ultimately, like another opportunity popped back up at Lipscomb Academy where I could basically be a full-time coach. I have two daughters, and the college game requires a lot from you. And one of those things is time from your family. And I think coaching in general is going to require that at any level. But it's definitely more demanding at the college level. And the opportunity at Lipscomb here ultimately provided, full-time coaching, but also more of a full-time dad as well. And I wanted to, take that opportunity and be the best dad I could be.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think it's as every coach, depending on when they start in their life, I think that's the scale that they've got to figure out for themselves is, what is that time usage? What is that work-life balance? What does that look like for you? What works for your family? And I know that that's a conversation that you and I have had vastly different versions of for years. From over a decade ago when we met, what that conversation sounded like to, anything within the past, 3 to 5 years and what it sounds like.
That's right. Yeah, and obviously for you and you're now what 2 years into to being a head coach or a couple years being a head coach, right?
No, 15 months ish.
Okay. Got it. And so like for you, what does that look like in your transition from obviously an OC now into a head coach? Like what's the biggest difference you've experienced?
Yeah, so TK, well traveled, has been a play caller since he before he could drink alcohol, it seems like. Guy called plays straight off the college stage with his degree.
No idea what I was doing.
And and you can speak more to this, but has been a couple places, been different programs, different parts of the state of Texas, been to different states, etc. And that wasn't me. and we always kind of compared notes and whatnot. Our paths were trying to get to the same place, and we took different versions. When we left Tarleton, I got my high school certification and I went to Salina, and what I thought was going to be a 1.5-year stint turned into 8. What I thought was going to be a pit stop back into the college ranks turned into, a wife, 3 kids, and staying in the same place for almost a decade, which I never saw happening for me. But in that path, like you said, learned a lot of football. The more I learn, the less I know. And I also got used to the structure and the discipline and the expectation of that one program. And, last January of 23, accepted a job, started in March at a 2A school out in East Texas, and am now the head coach, the athletic director, and still calling plays. And this was the goal, right? That, we want the AD title. We want, the buck stops with me. That was the goal. If it wasn't going to be the Big 12 or the SEC, it was going to be head coach AD. And I mean, everybody says it, and I heard it ad nauseum the first 5 years I was coaching, but until you're in it, those words just don't ring as true. But you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. I love what I do. I love being the head coach. I love being the AD, but people, I think, in the field of coaching and just the recreational fan, the parent, they have no idea what all makes up everything that comes with that title of athletic director. And there are some days that I joke with coaching buddies. I'm like, man, what I would give to just be a position coach for like 2 weeks, and just focus on that. But, it's the ability the art of juggling 1,000 things. You become much more of a manager than, a play caller. But yeah, so been out here in Northeast Texas for a little, almost 1.5 years, and, trying to live out that dream and see where it takes us and what we can do with it. So
I think it's important for people who are listening that are not from, it's not from Texas. Like, there's a big difference in specifically a 6A head football coach and his role. So, like, for the most part, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like for the most part, if you are a head football coach in Texas at the highest level, you are also likely the athletic coordinator. That's a big difference compared to head football coach, athletic director. And so, like, with your smaller, 2A, 3A, whatever it may be, like, you are the athletic director. And so, like, you're not just juggling everything from overseeing football, like, that's athletics in general, correct?
Oh yeah, and district wide. So
Right.
that means, like, if you're at a 5 or a 6A and you're the campus coordinator, athletic coordinator, that you're like, that campus coordinator is a perfect encapsulation of that. High school sports fall under your umbrella. And your ability now, bigger school, bigger staff, managing more people, but at smaller schools, really 4A and down, if you're the AD, that's 6th grade pre-athletics, that's junior high athletics, that's, high school athletics, boys and girls, top to bottom. And that's field maintenance, that's, equipment maintenance. It's so much more. But what I will say, I never want to be one of those people who's like, I think everybody should have to go do this job before they can do any, I don't want to say that. But what I will say is that the learning opportunities that have been presented over the last year, I wouldn't have got at Salina or at a bigger school because I wouldn't have needed to. There was enough delegation, there was enough staff to where could I have done that if I proactively was like, hey, can I shadow you in this role? Nobody's going to say no, but I would have never known to do that because it was never expected of an offensive coordinator or a position coach. And so moving down to a smaller classification to move up and roll, has presented a learning experience that I now have. I've kind of waded in the shallow end of so many different things that if and when I was ever to move back up to a bigger school, I feel like it would make me more valuable, more of an asset because of this experience. And they're completely different worlds. The more I look at it, I think 5 and 6A is a world unto its own. And even within that, you can make a strong argument of 5 and 6A being completely different worlds. 3 and 4A are in a completely different world from 5 and 6, and 1 and 2A are in a completely different world from 3 and 4. And it's all based off of resources, number of student athletes, number of teachers, number of coaches, and time. And, perfect example is the summers. I remember at Salina when I first got there, it was, we were 4A, but we were small 4A, about 600 kids in the high school. And when I left, there was 1,100. But when I got there, we were doing 3 summer sessions of workouts. You had your varsity guys in the beginning, then you had your young high school guys, and then you had your junior high guys, and you had 3 different sessions. So we're up there for 3.5, 4 hours, Monday through Thursday. Well, here I have less coaches on staff, but because of the smaller number of students, we just have 1 session, right? And there's all different back and forth trade-offs from 4 to 2 or vice versa. And that's just one example, but again, would never have experienced, would never known how to manage those situations if you don't make a move, if you don't take a chance and an opportunity.
Right. And so you've already kind of obviously dove into a little bit of it, but talking about some of those differences that you've had at Salina compared to now being at a 2A, what are a couple of the biggest? I mean, obviously resources are going to be the big one. Like you're so much more spread thin at a 2A compared to 4A, but kind of talk more into that.
Yeah, it's amplified even more because of where Salina is and the tradition that it has.
Sure.
There's a graphic it seems like every spring or summer the graphic comes out about Collin County, which, when you came back from Lipscomb for that year, you were in Collin County at McKinney High.
Yeah.
When you look at the resources, I mean, there's 30-40 million, there's a dozen $30 to $40 million stadiums in Collin County alone for high schools. When you look at Prosper and McKinney and Allen and Salina and Melissa and Farmersville with their new indoor, Princeton, you look at these are multi-million-dollar stadiums, and most of those are football only. They're not,
right.
Or there's no track, I should say. They're not football only. There's football, soccer.
They're not football only.
Right. But the resources that are available at that level and then moving out here, it's just completely different. But, that doesn't mean that you can't win, you can't be successful. We've said it before, 1,000 ways to skin a cat, and, a lot of them work. So it's just, you have to figure out, and you're just adding tools to your coaching tool belt of how to manage and handle those different situations. The expansion of resources, the limitation of resources. But I think the other thing that has to be acknowledged is the value. I think in the last 6 to 8 years, coaching buzzwords, and I think you and I have been guilty of it on previous episodes, but coaching buzzwords and talking points of, you want to make sure that you hit these because of how they sound and how they'll be received. But I can't say it enough how important it is to have a culture and have a way to implement it. When you do those things, you have to accept the fact that it's going to take some time. But when you can consistently do those things, you can change, you can win anywhere. I hate this idea that, they win because they've always won. Well, Tim Buchanan said it best. When he took over at Aledo, I think it was in the mid-90s, nobody wanted that job. And I think it's safe to say that everybody wants that job now. And that's just one example. There's a lot of places that would fall into that category, but the thing that Buck did was he had a culture and he had a consistent implementation of those expectations. And I think that that's that's the key. Anywhere can be successful as long as everyone is bought in to the direction and the effort it's going to take to get there.
Sure, and especially at a smaller school. I mean, that's the biggest difference is the requirement of everybody to have to contribute to everything is so much more important than it would be obviously at a 5 or 6A because it's so much more specific at a 5 or 6A. You know, it's specific to football, it's specific to this, and that. Whereas like, 2A, 1A, it's like, hey man, like if we want the school to be successful, we need you to do everything.
100%. I mean, our principal and I would joke during the spring because it's like, all right, let's ballpark what percentage of the student body's gone today, and like 40% was like low balling it, because you're looking at there's baseball games and there's track meets and there's FFA and there's ag and there's dual credit, there's UI academics, there's choir, there's band, there's theater, all these things, and everybody's doing it all.
Right.
And which is exactly how it should be. You never want to be a coach that's just talks the talk and doesn't back. Like I want all the athletes to be involved in as many things as possible, as long as they understand the work that comes with it. You can't just fall back on like, oh, well, coach, I was doing this, so that's why I didn't lift weights. No, bullcrap. Like you can do that. Yeah. Just get your butt up and take care of your business.
Right.
And that's where it presents an opportunity of learning and teaching that, yes, we want you to be successful and have your hand in as many things as possible, as long as you understand that I'm busy isn't an excuse. It's right. Just I'm busy. Let me find a way to get all my boxes checked and my work, taken care of, and that effort still be there. But to flip it back on you, we kind of touched. I mentioned, you've been to a few different high schools. And we're at a growing, budding program here when you left to go up to Lipscomb with Coach Dill for the first time. Mm-hmm. And then coming back, going to Vanderbilt and going from the SEC back into the high school ranks at Lipscomb. You're kind of going through a resource shock as well. I would say that, as well taken care of as the staff and supporters of Lipscomb Academy are, I think that it's a pretty safe conclusion that you're going to see a dip in resources when you're comparing it to an SEC program. But just talk about the why. You touched on it a little bit, the why and where you are and what's different maybe this time around.
Yeah, no, you're right. And the resources, like everybody knows, like SEC, it just means more. And but like, dude, when you're in it, I mean, like it's like all you're living. Like you're in that building all day long. It's a grind, but you got everybody doing everything that you can imagine. Whether it is washing your own laundry, so you can stick to more game planning. And you can always come back to clean laundry. Constant food in your face, just make sure that you're fed, and so you can game plan even better. It's easy to take for granted, whether it's the free snacks that I was able to bring my daughter every night. Yeah, which he's like, God, Dad, why'd you have to take a new job? I don't get free snacks anymore. But that's the biggest difference, obviously, is the resources and just the amount of staff. I mean, when you go into a staff meeting in an SEC program, when you have the main staff table with your full-time coaches, and you have, all 35 to 40 people in the surrounding table that are your GAs, your QCs, your personnel, recruiting. Dude, they're intense staff meetings. Not to say it's not intense at the high school level, but it's such a different thing, and you're touching on everything from training, what our GPS is saying here. So and so has hit his load for the day, so we got to make sure when we go to individual period that he's 50%. That way he can go 100% for team period. Like just stuff that obviously the high schools for the most part don't have. And so now coming back to Lipscomb, it's getting used to not having all those things taken care of for you and having to do a lot more things on your own and taking more initiative. Knowing that like, oh crap, like I don't have we had a equipment guy for every single position, obviously. And so I would meet with him before every practice and we would go over, all right, hey, well, we're going to go to this period. I want the ball to be on the right middle. Here's a script. Be aware because the second play is going to be a tempo play. I need you to spot it right now. And so, I get back to Lipscomb, my first practice, because we actually practice here in the summer, totally different in Texas. And so, yeah,
The
so
jamborees.
I'm like scripting every day right now. And so, like, I get out there and I put the ball down and I'm like, all right, here we go. And I had like a hurry up for like the third or fourth play. But after the first play, I'm like, wait, where's our ball spotter? Like, and so I'm like, crap, like that's my job. Like, I need to make sure, like, whether it's the hurt kid that hadn't got cleared yet, or whether it's a freshman coach, hey, will you please spot the ball? Those are the things where it's like, you just kind of take for granted. But I also think it's the thing that makes high school beautiful because everybody has to be so much more invested and everybody has to be so much more aware of what can we do to tag team and make sure everything is taken care of. Um, and obviously it's a lot more time with my family as well. I said that earlier. That's the biggest why was, um, and at Vanderbilt, it was a very, very family friendly place. But again, it's just like, I mean, that demand that is required, not by the head coach, just required for excellence at that level. It's just demanding. And then when this opportunity pops up where it's like, okay, I've been a teacher in Texas, because you have to be obviously, and a coach. And even if you're coaching health, like I was at McKinney, like you're still responsible for a classroom. Like you still have to peek your head into the classroom, make sure like your kids are still there. Otherwise, you might get fired. You still have to enter in the grades for 6 weeks, right? And then you get to the SEC, and it's like, oh, this is straight ball all day long. All I'm worried about on a Wednesday afternoon is third and 1 to 3, and what the percentage of 4 down to 3 down they're going to be versus 11, 12 personnel. Like, and that's all you're worried about. And meanwhile, I'm getting 5 cups of coffee throughout that whole time, and so I had the opportunity to come back here where it's a perfect mixture of both. Like I don't have to teach. I still am involved, in the school, whether it's just going up and, lunch duty or hanging out and trying to show face and be around the teachers. But like it's football 24/7 here without the recruiting. And like that for me is like kind of the perfect job where it's like, okay, I get to do ball all day long. I'm not in a classroom and like I get to really grind and script and not have to worry about like crap, like are any of my students missing? I can just script, dial it in, and then oh, by the way, like it's not 11 o'clock at night. I'm going home. It's 6 or 7.
Yeah, I am. And I think the craziest part about this is a PSA for young coaches, I guess is the best way to say it. Like I remember being 24, 25, 26, and we're going, you and I are going to AFCA, we're going to coaching school, we're going to these things, and the O-line coach from Stanford's talking, or, the linebackers coach from Alabama's talking. It's like, okay, well, this is what we do during, first individual, second individual, and like these are how we set up our drills, and here's video footage of it, and you're like, man, can't wait to implement this. And then you get back and you realize that like, okay, why was he able to do that? Well, he's got an equipment manager that returns the balls. He's got an equipment manager that throws the balls. He's got, one of those guys is setting up that drill before, and they also have probably 3, maybe 4 practice fields. You work at a school that you practice on your game field because of convenience, and you don't have any equipment managers. Right. And you also have to script the practice, and so if you can't set it up during pre-practice and have it be out of the way, we've got to understand the balance of resources and your ability. Do you want to be learning? Absolutely, you want to be learning. But Major Applewhite at the DFW clinic, I think like 6 years ago, said KYP, and I write it on every piece of like game planning or practice scripting piece of like document I ever have. You got to know your personnel, and that's not just player personnel. You got to know your staff personnel. You got to know your resource personnel. You got to know all of those things, because would I love to be able to script my offensive team session based off of, big play to right hash, negative yardage to left middle? Absolutely. But you know what? I'm just trying to find somebody to fly the drone to film it.
Right.
And I got 5 coaches trying to coach, 11 to 13 kids as we sub personnel. So, and somebody's got to get the box lined up on scout team. Like, we got a KYP.
Yes.
And we've got to understand what our scope is, what our availability is to to tackle some of these things, because I have attempted to bite off way more than I can chew and get 5 minutes out there. And I distinctly remember a time at Salina where I'm like, why are we not left middle? And it's like, well, because our ball spotter that volunteered yesterday is not here. So who did you tell to spot the ball? And it's like, well, I can't tell anybody because they're all doing their job.
Right.
And understanding the difference, the levels to things like that, and trying to keep what knowledge that you gain and your attempts to implement it based off of that information.
Yeah. I mean, dude, our position equipment manager had an assistant. So like, I mean, again, like I know this like for everybody's coaching college, this is like nothing special, but like I remember for me, again that first year, it was more me kind of just like sitting back and kind of just in shock and awe of like every moment that would happen. I'm like, dude, this is unbelievable. But like, you know, I remember the first time we're at it was our first. I got there in the spring. Yeah, I got there in the spring, and so we have our first team segment, and the head of equipment, as we transition going into our team segment, runs over and like gives me a Portaphone headset. It's got my name like label on it. And it's a small thing, but to me at that time I was like, dude, this is wild. And like I mean, out of nowhere, boom, each coach, boom, headset, here you go, put it on. And now it's like game time already. And we're talking, and it's just like in a game. And then as soon as that last play was over with, because they all had the script, boom, like there was an assistant there, grabbed my headset, and we're sprinting to ball security drill. And it's like, dude, like that just ain't gonna happen at the high school level. I mean, it's not. And I'm not saying that's something that's necessary, but to your point, it's one of those things where it's like you do got to see the things that you see at clinics and be aware and be like, really cool, can't do it. You know what I mean? Or like,
Never gonna
really
happen.
cool, how can we actually implement that in our own way based on our resources? So that's a good point brought up by you, because I was constantly seeing that. I'm like, dude, what a simple drill that Lincoln Riley's doing. We're so stupid to not do that. And then you start actually like trying to like map it out and like, wait, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. Makes sense. It's a little
What a
things
simple
that you
drill.
miss.
Why don't we just get 2 yoga balls and some pool noodles, and then we can do this pocket mobility? Oh, wait, because we don't have 3 people to man the
Yeah.
equipment. We have 3 quarterbacks and me, and we don't have anybody to catch
Yep.
the ball after he throws it, and we don't have anybody to chase down the yoga, I think that to piggyback off of that, I remember, I can't remember the exact year, but I remember at Salina we got the GPS trackers for, I think we got like 8 or 10 of them, and we were going to put them on some of our skill position guys
wow.
during 2-a-days. And it was really because we knew it was going to be a hot 2-a-day. It was going to be a longer one, and to track their like, their burst energy levels. Was there a big drop off? Are we seeing the guy, this, that, and the other? But here's the fact that came into play immediately is like, yes, all of that's true. And it's great. And we had the technology available. We had it there to use. But let's talk about when JV varsity practice ends during 2-a-days. Well, you get a 20-minute break, and then you're either starting laundry or you're out doing pre-practice with the freshmen. And while the freshmen are doing pre-practice, somebody is starting and flipping the laundry, and somebody else is uploading the film. And that information, albeit recorded right there on the devices, has to be uploaded into a computer, and the only one that can take the upload is the same one we're using to upload Huddle right now. And then after you upload it, you've got to diagram it and print it off so somebody can go through and read it. Oh, and by the way, somebody has to know how to read it. And it's like we don't have the time. It would be great if somebody was just like, oh, okay, I'm not going to go to freshman practice. Must be nice. Great look for the rest of the staff. You're the one coach that doesn't go out there. And then have the training on how to use it, how to implement it, and then have the time. And I know that Coach Elliott talked about all the time, like we never wanted to be a staff that meet just to meet. If we were going to have a meeting, it needed to have substance, purpose, and we needed to cover multiple things. And that creates a scenario of exchanging that information. You got to have a meeting forum, or somebody's typing up a really long email. It's probably not going to get read because everybody's exhausted and they got to go to in-service. And so even though we had the physical technology and the physical resource, we didn't have the personnel resource to properly and efficiently implement it just because we're a high school.
Right. Right. Hey, real quick too. You mentioned huddle. Quick rant. So,
Uh-oh.
all right, really upset about this. So, probably within the last 3 weeks, I've called huddle maybe every day, Monday through Friday, except for 3 days, for something, right? Like example, okay, and maybe this would make the podcast. I don't know, right? But like,
Oh, it's in.
okay, so
We're
like,
just going to throw the huddle sponsorship out the window right now. Go ahead.
no doubt, I'm only going to help him right now. So, like Catapult, right? Formerly known as Exos at the college level. Okay. The coolest thing they have is whenever, okay, so for example, you script practice. Let's say you script 10 plays, and on that data, you have hash, yard line, D&D, personnel, formation, play, right? And let's say you get 10 plays of all of that. The coolest thing that they can do, right, is you can go on your Excel file, you can copy that, right? And then as soon as the video gets uploaded after practice, you will go to that specific segment of practice, and you can literally, as long as the columns obviously are the same, paste. And now all 10 plays with all of that data, boom, right there, right? So like with Huddle, you can't do that. I mean, you can like download and you have to do an Excel file. It's just way harder as opposed
Yeah,
to just
but
going to
like,
X.
why would you want to do that when you could just type it again for huddle?
That's
When
my
you could
point.
just waste your time by typing it twice.
That's okay. So whatever. So I'm calling Huddle whatever the last few weeks every day, basically like, hey, just want you to know this is a pretty cool feature. Would love to have it. Right. That was my conversation. I had those just about every day. I'm not saying this is a result of me. Okay. Normally you have that little number at the top part of your Huddle. It ain't there anymore, right? And so I saved the Huddle contact on my phone. I was like, okay, it's weird. So let me go to Huddle. Boom, I call it. This number is no longer available. So I'll start, yeah, oh yeah, like I hope high school coaches hear this because they're about to lose their mind. Okay. So I'll lose my mind. And I like, boom, type up an email. And I'm like, weird. Like I can't, because like Huddle was the best. I don't know if you remember, like you could always call them and they'd be like, hey,
Yeah.
coach, what's going on? And
100%.
they'd be like, hey, bro, like I can't get this figured out. Help me. And within 5 minutes, boom, they got it. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but like that number no longer works. I sent an email twice and it was like, hold on. They're like, yeah, we no longer have a working number anymore, but you can submit an email. And I was like, well, what happens if there's an emergency in the middle of the game? Well, then at that moment, you'd have to submit this form, and then we can give you a number for those specific products. But for anything else, just simple emails.
Yeah, so if your Huddle sideline goes down, please log into your Huddle account, submit this form, and we'll email you a number to call. So what you're saying, I mean, they've lost their grassroots beginning.
Thank you. That's my, like, they're a monopoly now. And it's like, okay, like, come on, dude. Like, y'all were the absolute best at being able to like help us as coaches. Cause like, let's be honest, like most of us are not very tech savvy. And even if we are, like most of us don't have the time to sit there and be like, let me just like Google it, YouTube. No, you know what? Let me hop on the phone with an actual human, not a robot. That was so nice. And now it's like, boom, number's gone. And it's like, dude, what? Like, so whatever. Like, if we can put more complaints in for that to get that, like, you know,
Yeah,
bring
back customer support.
That'd be great.
Okay, so off of that soapbox, let's rein it back in, breathe.
Yeah.
So we have known each other. You and I met summer of 2013 in the great town of Stephenville on the campus of Tarleton State University, back when it was still a member of the Lone Star Conference. And in that, with almost 11 years to the date, I want to know, what do you think has been the biggest change in the game of football? And that's not like, filter that question how you want. Level conversation, conceptual conversation, perception conversation. And what's the biggest change you think the game of football has gone through since we met in 2013?
I'll talk about two things. I think as a whole, right, college and NFL, it's just the incremental changes they've had from year to year or every other year to where, and I get it, like they're trying to make the game safer, right? Like I get that. My fear, though, obviously, is if we continue in this route, like it will become flag football. because like it is getting to the point like if I'm a defensive player, I'm scared to ever make a tackle, specifically at third level against a receiver, because it's like probably going to get a penalty, maybe get fined, may get ejected. And so like, and again, I get it, like it's all for the safety of the players, but it's just kind of like it's also what we signed up for, and we know what we're signing up for. And so I think as a whole, that's probably the biggest change. And then specifically from where I just came from at the college level, obviously the most recent change that's changed the entire world is NIL, which is trickling down into the high school level as well. I don't know about in Texas, but in here it is now. But dramatically at the college level to the point where like for your bigger players towards the end of my stint there at Vanderbilt, like you ain't really talking to kids anymore. You're talking to agents, and it's like, well, hey, we'll offer, we can do this, we can offer this, but like so and so's going to offer them this much. The issue is like because there is no rule barrier there, and there is no like contractual, basically anything in writing that's telling you like, hey, so and so is getting this much offered to him. Like you don't know if that kid is actually being offered $350 from Kentucky. You may be only getting offered $50, but you really want the kid. So then you offer $400, and in reality, you get the kid. He ain't very good, and oh wait, he's only actually getting $50. And it's like, dude, we just got. But like that's what you're dealing with that with agents now too. And so like for me, that was a change where it's like, oh, this is not cool. Like, the agent's like, well, my client's for this, my client. I'm like, hey, tell your client who's a 17-year-old child to just give me a call. Like, I don't want to talk to you.
His drawback sucks and he won't quit patting the ball. So we're not going to call him your client. His name's Trevor.
That's right. It's like, dude, I just want to talk to him and see if this is the right fit for him. Like, does he even? I'm not going to call him and be like, hey, first conversation, offer $1,000. But that's where it's going, and that's how almost every conversation's gotten to. So like, obviously, that's the biggest change that we're experiencing now. And so until that thing gets regulated to where there's a salary cap and there's things in writing and incentives or whatever it may be, like it's just going to be the Wild Wild West. And at this point, I was talking to I think it was a Kentucky O-line coach who was at Alabama, and he was like, man, at this point, screw facilities. Kids don't care about facilities anymore. Put all that money from facilities, put it in NIL. Like, if facilities don't matter anymore, the first thing they're going to bring up is NIL. And the scary thing that a lot of people don't think about is like, because like we were dealing with this, is like kids who were afraid to tell their parents. I didn't think about this. Kids who are afraid to tell their parents how much they're making because their parents
don't make anywhere near that. Yeah.
And we had parents that were like, we ain't had parents. I've actually heard of some on other teams that were like taking money from the kid. So the kid didn't want to tell the parents that he's making $200,000 because mama would go in there and take it right now. I'm like, oh my God, dude, like this place is just getting wild. And so, yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest difference. But what about you?
Yeah, and I'm like, I still feel like, your boys got a little bit more gray in the jawline, but I feel like playing days and time in college wasn't that long ago, and like there were vastly different conversations about like how many tattoos are we going to get with our FAFSA check, or like how much of my summer school stipend is going to get sent home, to like, yeah, but if I get my Pell Grant, then I can go rent these rims for the semester. And now it's like, if it doesn't have 5 figures on an annual basis, like they're not talking to you.
That's right.
And it just blows my mind because 10 years is not a long time. 5 years is a blink of an eye, and the game is like complete. The fun conversations are like, imagine how much money Robert Griffin or Johnny Manziel would have made in the NIL world. It like unreal. But you're talking about like it trickling down into the high school. It hasn't made it to Texas yet, but there's approved NIL in the state of Florida, and there's a transfer portal in Florida and I think Georgia for high schoolers, which is like, what are we doing? What are we doing? And it completely counteracts. I'm going to answer my own question since, just to piggyback off of yours. Like Tom Brady's, his big speech at his Hall of Fame speech or whatever that event was, he's like, every person should be challenged to play football because it's hard. And like, to me, that's the biggest difference is like, there's an aura around it that it can't be too hard. And it's
Mhm.
like, and I mean, I don't know the guy at all. I've never even like met him at a coaching clinic, but I feel like that's one of the things that attributed to Saban's retirement is like, my man expected hard for everybody. We're going to do it the hard way because it's the right way and it's going to be what makes us great. And it's just like, nah, we're good. And now you've got to find that balance of like, you got to create that. We understand that you have to create that culture because of the product that it does produce, the person that it does produce. But you can't deny the fact that if it is too hard or if you push a kid too far, you're going to lose him, and you're going to lose him to somebody that is going to throw him a bag.
That's right.
And like, I don't know what the balance is, and I don't know what it looks like. You know, how do you walk your way in or out of that? But like, it's just scary because even if you remove like the player safety and like the elimination of techniques and like the things that you were talking about, even if you remove that, like, football for me was great because of two things. There was like regionality and there was hard, right? Like, conferences mattered, rivalries mattered,
Mm-hmm.
and like, not everybody did it because it was so hard.
Yeah.
Well, now conferences, districts, alignments, none of that matters. And at the college level for sure, but even to a certain extent at the high school level. And now everybody's afraid to make it too hard. And yes, I know you get the responses like, "What, you want them to be bear crawling in a field full of stickers?" No, that's crazy. That's not hard. That's stupid. That's not hard. And understanding the difference, I think, is crucial. But the game of football is supposed to be hard. You know, there's 88 opportunities for a kid to have a starting impactful role. Name another sport that we can put our children in that present them that opportunity. 88 different chances and different techniques and different responsibilities to say, I contributed to the success of this group.
Mhm.
And it's just, well, I know you and I have watched ourselves transition into like the young up and coming coach trying to climb the ladder, get the foot in the door, to now I feel like the grumpy old man that's like, oh, back when I was, you know, and I don't want it to be that way. But the harsh reality of it is that we have got to get to a place as a full community, school, support staff, coaching staff, team of players, of understanding that this is going to be hard. Parts of it you're not going to like. And sometimes we're going to come up short, but you're going to be a better person for it.
Correct. Well, that's a great point, because what this whole thing has essentially forced coaches to do is to prioritize transaction over transformation. And like, that's what the NIL world has now basically forced, because like Coach Lee is, I mean, literally his whole thing was transformation over transaction. And so like, you know, probably one of the few coaches left in college football that, you know, was prioritizing that. College football is more of a business, but, you know, his whole thing, and still is, but it is, you know, we will teach these young boys how to become men, like your old school cliche thing, but like what football is meant for. And, yeah, I just saw throughout the years where it's like, it's just harder and harder as a head coach to do that, because you know that you have to win. And now with the way that things are going, the only way that you can win, like, and we all know, it's Jimmy's and Joe's, like, period. Like, for the most part, show me really good players, I'll show you a really good coach. You know, it's just, it is what it is. And so, makes it way easier for us, but like, that's what it's doing. And that's what sucks too. Cause like, you know, I think now you're having these boys who maybe they didn't have the best high school mentor. Well, normally they would be able to get that in college, and now they're likely losing that in college. And so now they're getting to the NFL, where they're making money, a lot more money they've ever made in their life. Maybe, I don't know, it could be less now with the NIL. But point being is, now they've had no mentor to teach them like how to manage your finances, how to be just a good gentleman, like any of those things, because it's starting to become straight transaction. What can you do for me? Here's what I can do for you. as long as we win, we're good. And like that's the issue. It's like you're just skipping this major building block of transforming a boy to a man, and you just have a bunch of you know immature men now that don't know how to handle themselves, don't know how to handle anything, and eventually don't know how to run a family. And you want to be a leader, and be a leader first in your family, and we're losing that.
100%. Okay, lighthearted finish, because that we got down into the trenches there. So as I mentioned, you and I met at Tarleton now almost right at 11 years ago. And with the reboot going on with this, I just want to kind of a little nostalgia moment. Your first, I kind of know pieces of it, but if you want to just share your first impression of me as the new guy joining the staff at Tarleton in 2013.
Yeah, so I absolutely hated Travis initially. I'm a very OCD person. I have a chair wherever I go. No, I'm not trying to sound narcissistic. Like I get into a room and that's my chair. I'll hate you forever. But like I had a chair, right? And this new guy rolls in, whatever. Mind you, at the time too, like I wasn't taught anything in high school necessarily from a major like football, AP football perspective. And so like I was already very insecure about like man, everybody was so smarter than me. And so anyway, this dude rolls in. We're going into a meeting. Didn't know who he was, and he's in my chair. So already I'm pissed. I think this guy. I think he is. And then we're talking about a play. I think it was like basically some type of G sweep. And the role generally is like you just don't speak if you're young. You just sit back and you listen and you say yes, sir. And they're like, what should we call this play? And this dude is like all confident and like, why don't we just call it like sweep opposite since we're going opposite of the G. And I'm like, dude, who is this dude? Like it's his first day and he's actually speaking like with confidence. Like who is this guy? Like get him out. And so anyway, that was kind of how it was initially. Lo and behold, we became best friends through folding towels in the equipment room.
The right way.
Right. And like you teaching me like, oh, hey, there's other ways that this game can be taught. Let me broaden your spectrum. And you kind of opened my eyes and opened some doors for me as well, as far as, different ways the game could be coached and played. And that was kind of the genesis of our relationship.
Yeah, I think that's it's funny now because that all of that came solely out of ignorance. Like you knew very early on that you wanted to be a coach, and I thought I did, and then I changed my mind, and I'm getting a business degree, so let me just Baylor's expensive, let me go this route, and then until Coach Babers kind of planted that seed in my head, those last couple of years at Baylor, it wasn't really on my mind, and so I say all that to say that like I never tried to learn how to move in that space. Like I just went to the locker room and like I just, did what I do and, did what I was told to do, got yelled at when I got yelled at, and, it is what it is type thing. And you were always more cognizant of like the roles that go into like making up a coaching staff, making up a team. And all I knew is like, okay, here's the positions they play. Here's the positions that these guys coach. And like, I'm not stupid. I know there's a hierarchy, but I was also in an environment to where it didn't seem like there was a huge difference between the outside receivers coach and the quarterbacks coach and the OC and the head coach and, this, that, and the freaking O-line GA at the time was the son-in-law of our head coach. So it's like, he's kind of talking whenever Pops talks to him. So it wasn't like a speak when spoken to only type situation. And so I just walk into a room ignorantly and I'm just like, well, I mean, game's not hard, fellas. Like, and it is. The game is extremely hard and it's very confusing. And I was really stupid, but I thought I wasn't. And the blissful ignorance that led to the confidence to just speak. But the other side of that is like, guys, also be aware that the same thing that led me to confidently give what I would consider a right answer a lot led me to confidently do something stupid and get myself in trouble on the same staff in the same rooms, multiple times, and create major growing situations.
Yeah, but I'll say this though too, because like, and it's not to cut you off, but like I think like that's where you and I were a really good yin and yang, because like I low-key admired how confident you were, not knowing like where it was stemming from, but like I do think as coaches, like you do need to be cognizant of like who the OC is, but I also think that that's also overblown. Now that I've been in the industry for a while, it's like we're all sitting in the room talking football. Just speak your mind. Like have awareness. That's like the number one thing I would tell any young coach is like any person in life, have awareness. Awareness is the number one trait you gotta have. But like so I think we overblow like, oh, I can't speak here. I'm definitely like I fall victim to that really bad because I was always so scared. I really admire how you could be like, no, just do this right here. I'm like, damn it, why can't I do that? Like, and I think as a result, yeah, I think as a result, like when you are too cognizant, like I was, it makes you afraid to ask those questions, to feel stupid in front of people. As a result, you don't learn. Um, and so it's twofold. It's like have awareness, but also it's like, dude, at the end of the day, like it's like we're all gonna die one day. We're here short on earth. Like live it to the fullest. Ask the questions you want to have and ask them like in the moment, because all the moment is what you got guaranteed, and then go from there. And so like that's where you helped me out, because it was like, you know what, right, screw this. Like I don't know this answer. Help me out. I don't care who's in the room. Like you helped me kind of get there as well.
And it, like you said, the awareness is the biggest factor. Like when I first got to Salina runs the 10-1 defense. It's the wildest, craziest, doesn't make any sense, but works. Like if you don't understand it, it doesn't make any sense. And if you do understand it, you don't understand why anybody does anything different. From the day I got there, anytime we had downtime, I went and found our defense coordinator, sat right next to him, and I said, teach me defensive football. And I still don't get it, but I went in knowing that like I don't know what's going on this side of the ball, and I definitely don't know what's going on the side of the ball here. But I wanted to learn, and because of some of the situations and experiences I had at Tarleton, it was like, this is a great. I'm just gonna fall on my face proactively. That way, I don't have to go through the accidental embarrassment of doing it when no one expects it. I'm just gonna go in and say, I'm stupid. Talk to me like a 3-year-old that is just learning the game of football. And it did two things. And this is huge for young coaches. When you do that he immediately let down his guard. And it wasn't like, because I'm not the young coach coming in going, well, why would we do that? Why don't we do it this way? Like, I don't have all the answers. I'm telling you, I don't have all the answers. Just talk football with me. And when you can get a coach like that to let their guard down, then the wealth of knowledge that they will share with you. And it's not because every coach is like, oh, don't talk to me. It's just, we're all busy. We have a lot to do. And nobody likes the young hotshot that comes in and claims they know everything. I know, because I put myself in situations where I thought I was the young hotshot, and not many people liked it. So I tried to create opportunities to do the opposite. And we had a great relationship the whole time I was there. We had the ability, as I got promoted and became the offensive coordinator, to work off of each other in game situations in a way that I think was new to him, where I was not afraid to get on the headset or walk over to a defensive coach because, they had their own channel. Be like, I need to know what he needs. Can I go score in 57 seconds, or does he need a 7-minute drive? Like, where are we? What do our kids need? And when you create that dynamic and you can kind of bring down those defense walls early, it circles back to, having that consistent culture of that's what's going to separate you. Yes, the Johnny and Joes are important on the field and on the staff. And we've touched on it a million times of, you've got to be able to build your tribe, as Coach Dilfer used to describe it. You got to be able to build your tribe in a way that they trust, confidence, and the ability to go execute runs deep.
Yep, totally. So that was my first initial reaction to you. But I will say, like, even like the weeks following, it was like, all right, this guy actually knows like football. At the time, I didn't know why, but like you're under one of the most brilliant minds ever in our brows. And so like that's where, while we were folding laundry the most perfect way you could, you were teaching me the game of football in a different way that I'd never seen before, which ultimately led me to basically the offense that I called for the last 7 years essentially. So it's funny kind of how the world works, but I was grateful for it.